My name is Annie Pearl Avery, and what I wanted to say before I forget it is I was the only person arrested on Bloody Sunday because I was having this disagreement with the police, and people were beating and stuff. I didn't get beaten as bad as some other people. I had some contusions and abrasions, but compared to the condition of some of the other people were really bad. And what I like to do is, I'm not really a speaker, I'm a storyteller. So what I like to do is start off with telling you kind of how I got involved. At 9 or 10 years old, I had gone to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to live with an aunt. Her husband had passed, and she wanted somebody there with her. And all my cousins that were there, they were young adults just out of high school, getting ready to go to college, and the boys were getting ready to try to go into the service. So it's a funny thing. On the way to Pittsburgh, we got to Cincinnati, and we had to change buses. And when we changed buses, she and I happened to be the first people to get on the bus, and nobody else was. She said, "You can sit wherever you want." Do you know it was years before I could figure out what she was talking about? Because I'm a child, and when she said I could sit where I want, I ran to the back of the bus. But why did I run to the back of the bus? Because I had been accustomed, no signs up or anything. She said, "You can sit where you want." And she was trying to inform me, but I didn't get it. I just ran to the back of the bus and got me a seat. But anyway, I was there for a while, a few years there, went to school there, and I'm back in Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama. Now I'm in a situation where I can't go to the movies, I can't go and I'm at the back of the bus again, and all kinds of things are happening to me. Now, things were happening in Pittsburgh. We went to school, but then when school was over, people separated. But back at the back of the bus and all this stuff was a little bit too much for me at 13 or 14. I've gotten accustomed to another environment. And just before that, the Freedom Riders and the sit-ins started. So I said, if they come to Birmingham, I'm going with them. And the night the Freedom Riders showed up in Birmingham, a friend of mine and a neighbor and I went down to the bus station, the Greyhound bus station, to try to get in. And actually, I had bought my own ticket. I was going to go with them. And when we get to the bus station, there was a police line up, and they wouldn't allow us to come through the police line. And this was the Greyhound bus station. The Trailway bus station, they were beating people down there. But I had no way. You know how things are now, communication and technology, you would know everything that's going on 3 or 4 blocks away or even 1,000 miles away. But anyway, Candace told me, Reverend Abernathy is my uncle. But Reverend Abernathy wasn't that famous at the time. This was 1961. And she also got bored, and wanted to go home because they wouldn't let us cross the police line. And she left, went home, and I met a young man by the name of Wilson Brown, who was from Birmingham and was working with Reverend Shuttlesworth, who I had never seen but heard a lot about. And also, he had gone to a SNCC conference before. So I told him, I said, I got my own ticket. I'm ready to go. He said, you can't. He said, okay. What I did is when I bought the ticket, I also bought something else with the ticket. I bought me a knife. And they call them switchblades then. You know, you take and push the button and the blade jump out. Well, I had never had a knife before. I probably would have cut myself. But I figured with all this violence and stuff going on, I need some help if I'm going to go on the bus. And Wilson said, well, you can't go because you don't. I said, why? He said, you don't understand the concept of nonviolence. And I had gone to the dictionary for it, but the word was not in the dictionary at the time. So I told him to explain it to me. He said, well, that's when somebody hits you, you can't hit them back. I said, I don't think I want to do that. So I got a refund for my ticket. And a few days later, I talked to Wilson again, and he asked me, did I want to go to a SNCC conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And I thought of it as being a threefold. Number one, I wanted to be involved in the civil rights movement. I wanted to learn more about it. The other thing is I was going to get the opportunity to go to Atlanta. I hadn't ever been to Atlanta before. And I was going to get the opportunity to go free. So I left my knife at home, and everything is history after that. I was in demonstrations all over the South. I was in Birmingham. Matter of fact, I got locked up in Birmingham, my home. But before I got locked, the first time I got locked up was in Albany, Georgia, in the Albany movement. I went down there, a brother by the name of Bob Mance. If you look him up, you can find him on YouTube or whatever. Bob Mance told me to come down with him to check it out. And I got to Albany and got locked up in Albany, Georgia. And I've been arrested right here in Atlanta several times in the 60s and in the 70s. Because I lived here for 35 years. Then I was in Mississippi when Cheney, Swerner, and Goodman were murdered. I was in Danville, Virginia. I was in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and several places. And what I like to do is to say that, I've gotten these acclimates and stuff, but I think the most important thing I have is the experience and the information that I've gotten by being involved, because I'm meeting a lot of people who have a lot of information, And I'm also interneting with people who are more knowledgeable than I am. And I'm open for knowledge all the time. So this is what I do. I even promote a little knowledge in Selma at the Slavery and Civil War Museum. But in February, I received the Congressional Medal for me being involved in the Bloody Sunday event. And I'm also in the National African American Culture Museum in Washington. I was inducted in there 2 weeks ago. I'm behind technology, so But anyway, you can Google me. If you Google and put my name in, some of the things will come up that I did, and the fact that the Smithsonian's done a documentary on me. But I was arrested in Birmingham and all the places. I've done a lot of things, worked with a lot of people, worked with Dr. King. I knew Dr. King. We weren't bosom buddies, but I did know Dr. King, and I knew Reverend Abernathy and all of them. As a matter of fact, when I come to Atlanta now, I go down to the SCLC office. I stayed here for about 30-some years. When I finally settled down, I stayed in Atlanta. I was in the taxi cab business. So I worked with Maynard Jackson in his him getting elected the first time and the second time, and Andrew Young, who are all friends of mine. Um, and I'm going to ask you, would you like to ask any questions? Because I can sit here all day, but, there's a lot of stories I can tell you, but I'd rather for you to ask me some things, and some of the stuff I've forgotten. So if you feel like asking me a question or whatever, go ahead.
Miss Annie, would you like to get into the conversation that we got into when we met in Selma? You and I.
Well,
when we talked
which
about
one?
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Oh,
we talked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, my views on well, actually, what I wanted you to do was look at the Up From Slavery. And the reason I wanted you to do that, because it tells us in there, in that documentary, how we were conned into accepting Christianity, you see. And it's very important that you get it, because it's 6 hours. I'm saying you couldn't have seen it all. But it talks about how if you were Christian, you could be free, partially free, and how we kind of grew towards Christianity because it was a way of getting some things and getting some things done. Even Nat Turner, who became, they were using this as a way to try to get free. Of course, it's turned, it's different now because we got so many people doing different things, and they have their own interpretation of what this was about. And we need to, and nothing's going to happen unless we do something, you see. There's nobody coming to help you do this stuff. You're going to have to do it. I'm saying there's nobody coming from anywhere. It's what you do that's going to make some changes. And two of the most important things, I think, at the very top of my list, one of them is voting. The other one is becoming economically empowered. We need to do something about our own destiny in terms of money. We have a lot of money. We spend it, we are consumers. We just buy everything. Every trinket comes out. We buy not just one, we buy two, or the whole family one. And what we need to do is get control of our community. All other ethnic groups have control of their destiny. We don't see any Japanese running around asking for a job, telling them we need to give us some jobs. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't get reparations and stuff like this, but we shouldn't depend on that. See, and a lot of our churches at this point, I'm not trying to blackball churches, have sold out. I'm just saying, they're selling out. They let these people come to their congregation and take a little money, and this is not good. I know you don't see, even the Hispanic people, you don't see them running around asking for jobs. They don't run around asking for jobs. They're creating their own independence. They have. People say, well, they live in five, and I don't care. We need to practice some of that. Now, when I say this, a lot of times we get some backlash from some whites. But what they should understand, and it's better for us to be economically empowered, and they should be willing to support us. And I have friends who are white who do support me in everything I do, just about. And we need everybody, but we need to do it ourselves. This is something we're going to have to do. You see, the Chinese, you don't see them running around asking for no jobs. They got their own thing going. And matter of fact, they even import their own food. Because we don't see them in the grocery store, places that we go, we don't see many of them. Because they buy from where their own people. And they got a thing about this is they don't care if your stuff is cheaper. Now that's devotion and commitment. Yeah. And when some of the Spanish people move into the community, you'll notice that if they rent a house, the next thing you know, the whole community, because they're buying the houses or either renting them. And that's nothing wrong with that. The Jews, everybody is independent in terms of economics. And until we do it, become independent that way, we're going to have serious problems forever.
Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to get back to the question of religion.
You need to talk a little louder.
I'd like to get back to talk about religion. In particular, could you talk about the climate when you were younger, as far as the social justice work you were doing, and the religious climate, and then talk about how if you run into religious folks now, how they talk about the religious climate then. Do you see a difference in religion now, especially those who do social justice work or say that they do social justice work?
What happened is they, I don't see it as a reality of this stuff that they talk about, I have nothing against people being comfortable with whatever they're comfortable with, but I don't believe that the religion is going to change anything for us. I don't think that we're going to be able to become independent as an independent black entity until we do. Until we get away from this, because this makes you depend on something else. Well, God's coming and it ain't happening. If you don't do nothing, ain't nothing gonna happen. Even when I was young, I was kind of questioning. I'd go to church and stuff like this, and I'd kind of question this stuff. And they were talking about people rising. I know the first person and the only person that I had seen dead was my grandfather. And I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was wondering why he wasn't moving. During that time they had funerals sometime in the house. They bring the casket in one of the houses or something. And I'm a kid, I don't know he dead. I'm in rubbing him, and I'm wondering why he won't get up. I was trying to wake him up. I didn't know it, that he was dead. See, but he was the only person that wasn't getting up. And I've been told that he was coming back and some other stuff. I'm just saying all up here. I ain't seen nobody come back yet. But I think that we have to do the best that we can do while we are here, and we're going to have to create our own destiny. It's definitely not going to be anyone mystique coming to do anything for us.
Ms. Avery, thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being here today. I wanted to get back to what you said regarding freedom and how it helped people to become partially free, not like they themselves, but if you said something about if you're religious, it could help get you certain freedoms. Like, what kind of things, how did you black people get conned, or anyone, how did anyone get conned into becoming religious in order to avoid certain bad treatment? Or did you?
Well, the thing is, I don't think that, I know in several cases I was, doing this praying and stuff, and I found out that it wasn't producing what I needed to get done. Even when I first got here, and I got in the taxi cab business, I wanted to get my own cab. Okay, so what I had to do was I had to start working more hours. Instead of working 12 hours, I worked 16 to get enough money to put down on a vehicle. And it's something you're going to have to do. There's nobody coming to do this for you. No. And if something do happen, it's happening because you've done something. It's not happening because anyone else, that's mystique or whatever, came to support you or to help you. You can decide your own destiny. I guess nobody can decide when they're going to die. If they do decide, that's okay. But we don't know when that's going to happen. That's another. No, but we need to get whatever you want to get done while you are here. And when I was going to jail and stuff, we were doing a lot of. Mostly what I was doing was a lot of singing. The songs, the freedom songs is really what helped me. Because what it did is you in jail and you begin to feel a little down, but then when you start singing, it kind of motivates you, and everybody starts saying, then we feel better. But the only thing got us out of jail was the bonds and the lawyers and we had to have some people put up their property and stuff like this to get us out. It definitely wasn't nobody's mystique come to help us with that.
Okay, I have two questions, but first one, when you were so young and wanted to get involved in civil rights, talk to us about your family's response to that and how you dealt with that or how they dealt with that.
Well, first of all, my mama didn't know everything I was doing. And finally it got to the point where she was, because we were really poor. There's a difference between being poor and poor. We were poor. So what happened is she wasn't able to buy newspapers and stuff like that, And some of our associates and friends and places where she went to the pharmacy and stuff, we had newspaper. So what they were doing, they were reading about me in the newspaper, and they were telling her, or in the Jet magazine, they were telling her. And what happened is finally Mom started marching and going to jail too because she got tired of not being able to keep up with me so she could get firsthand information.
That you inspired her, that's terrific.
And she took my sons along with her. So my son's mentors was Jose Williams and Arthur Charles Gaston. But anyway, when I was younger, thinking about this stuff, I really didn't think a whole lot about it then. Just everything was the way it was. Because even when I went to Pittsburgh, my homeroom teacher was real racist. I think now, I didn't know what it was then. But she said, she kept telling us that black people were cursed by God. I'll never forget her name was Miss Rollins. And she wore a size 12 shoe. She was tall. Anyway. And she kept telling us in class, and I rejected it. I resented it. And I even walked out of class and went home and told my people I wasn't going back to school up there. But I still didn't know anything about history. I'm just beginning to really learn most of what I know about history as a whole is in the last few years, because I'm doing a lot of reading and I'm coming in contact with people who have been exposed and who know some things. You know, Dr. Vincent Hardy was one of the people who started the Black World here in Atlanta, Institute of the Black World. He's dead now, but Dr. Vincent Hardy was a very informative man, and I knew him from my first encounter with Snick. He and his wife, and they had a baby. They had one daughter. The daughter's still alive, and she's still doing things. But I also finding that until you can get the information about what happened and connect it with what's going on now, because the only thing changed now is the methods that are being used, you know, the subtlety of a lot of this stuff. I think that we deserve reparations, and I really got intense about this thing after I read the book Slavery by Another Name by Mr. Blackman, and found out that after emancipation, we were re-enslaved for 75 more years. And the railroad was involved. Tennessee Coal and Iron was involved. Right there in Birmingham. This stuff happened in Birmingham. And I'm from Birmingham and living there. And my people come from, and a lot of my male relatives worked at TC&I. And also Wachovia Bank. And Wachovia admitted it, and then you had Chase, Morgan Chase, they were involved too. And nobody talks about that. Nobody really wants to talk about it. Even blacks don't want to talk about it. So until we figure out what happened, because think about it now, if you've been freed now, and we were able to get people elected thanks to Ulysses S. Grant. I found that out, but in order to get this information, you got to do a lot of reading. It's not going to be right there where you can just walk up to it, it's going to come to you. You have to go get it yourself. And it's in these buildings like the libraries and stuff, all this stuff is there, because we always thought Abraham Lincoln was our hero. Abraham Lincoln was not our hero. What? No. He said if he could bring the country back together with slavery, he would do it. And if he could bring the country back together without slavery, he could do it. He would do it. The main objective was to bring the country back together. That was the main objective of the Republican Party at the time. Now, Ulysses S. Grant was responsible in a big way. I know that we had some African American soldiers, and they were heroes. They were our heroes too, but they didn't have any power. Ulysses S. Grant was the president. He had enough power to protect us. We had federal protection under Ulysses S. Grant. Now, where you're going to find it, you're not going to find it looking under the emancipation stuff. You have to go directly to Ulysses S. Grant's history as the president. It's in the library. It's there. Because that's how I finally found it. And then what piqued my interest, they had a documentary about the presidents, all of the presidents, and what each one did that was special. And when they got to Ulysses S. Grant, they said what he did was special, was help black people. Okay? Now my goddaughter is young and she's up with the computer and stuff. And we were looking for how did we get elected during that time? How did all this stuff transpire? and you know, all the Klan and everything, and he dismantled the Klan. See, there's a lot of information that we don't know that happened, but it happened under his administration, and he was also responsible for something else I found that ain't have nothing to do with this. It was the Civil Service Act. You know, if you work for the government, you're civil service. Well, he did it for the Union soldiers because the Union soldiers couldn't find jobs. He's responsible for civil service. Well, don't have anything, and you'll find a lot of stuff like that if you read and go into history or whatever. There are things that you'll find that don't have anything to do with this, but they were good things. Because I retired as a civil service I worked for the county. See, now it's the county. At first it was just federal. And around the time that's World War II, we had some of our people who had came out of the army, and they were able to get these jobs because they had these points. You see, civil service, you already got some points when you go in the door. So whether a person is white or whatever, they couldn't get the job over you because you had the points. Of course, you had to have the ability to do whatever they wanted you to do. But these are some of the things that I think about. And I also think about the fact that, the up from slavery, I'm not trying to promote, but I'm not trying to promote certain things or certain people, but I'm just telling you about the things that happened up from slavery. In there, it'll tell you, this is document. It's not probably not a perfect thing, but it tells you where we got so involved in Christianity. It's not going to tell you that, it ain't going to do nothing for you, but I'm saying you can read it yourself. All you have to do is look at it. Because our people were doing it just to be a little free. Get some freedman's papers. And the same thing happens with the having ID and stuff. They had ID then. You had to have ID as a free man, freedman's papers. And okay, is anybody else? Y'all need to talk. Y'all need to come on. Don't be shy.
I just wanted to know.
And talk loud, because I got a hearing impairment. Mother Nature and Father Time is. Yeah. I'm still going. My last time to jail was last year in September, so I ain't stopped doing nothing.
Thank you for being here again. I just wanted to know, growing up in the rural South and all of the amazing things that you did, how did you, gain trust for white people again? I guess, or you mentioned that you have white friends, but I guess growing up in that climate where
It got to be individual. It's strictly the individual. In anything I do, any association, strictly the individual. There was some who were in the civil rights movement with me, and matter of fact, when I came to my first SNCC conference, that's when I met some of the first decent white people that I knew in my life. Ann and Carl Braden, Dottie Zellner, all these people, but Bill Hanson. There were a lot of people that I met, and I'm still associated with those people. And one of my best friends, the thing about this is, what happened is, sometimes whites don't get everything that we, because they're not black. What happened is, during the middle of the 1400s to 1775, that's almost 300 years. So we really lost everything in terms of our culture, our language, and everything. We lost that. We lost that because you'll lose anything you don't use. It probably was a death sentence to use the language. But the most important thing we lost was our connection to Africa. And my friend, my best friend, sometimes when I talk to her, she don't get it. And she said, well, Annie Pearl, why did you say that? I said, but you don't understand because you're not black. You're not going to be stereotyped when you go someplace unless I'm with you. If I'm with you, yeah. I said, you know who your great-grandfather is. I don't know who my great-grandfather was. You know, I said, you go visit your people all the time in Europe. Her great-grandfather was Winston Churchill. I call her a privileged radical. But anyway, I'm just saying we're the best of friends. And she supports everything I do. She might not come to the event, but she pretty much support everything I do. And then she kind of gets it sometime when after I tell her, you know. But you go down the line, there are a lot of things, and you can tell our names. Even I told her, I said, my name is Annie Pearl, but what would my name have been if my people had remembered their culture, you know, and their language, and things about Africa? Because I'm named after two aunts, Annabelle and Pearl. They were two aunts from my father, my father's sisters. And we can look at it. Look at Nat Turner. He was a slave, but I'm saying, what was his name? Nat Turner. It was not African. Frederick Douglass. All of these people, if you go down the line, all of our names became European names. You know, we named our children Europe names and stuff like that because that's what we were exposed to.
Hi. I just want to thank you again for coming here. My question's kind of two-part. One, I think I wanted to see what your thoughts were on the current state of like police brutality. I think a lot of people are saying now that, you know, things aren't necessarily getting worse, but most people have access to cameras and internet and social media,
Right.
so things are just getting exposed at a higher rate. So I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that in general. And then two, what are your thoughts on our current political climate, especially with the election coming up soon?
What I'm thinking about is, see, a lot of things have been happening all the time, but there was no attention being focused on some of this stuff. That's the reason I talk about the subtlety, because people have been getting some of our people have been getting killed all the time and be in jail for wrong reasons, but there was no focus on that. If you remember, when the civil rights movement was going, there was a focus on all of that. See? And I think that I have nothing against demonstrations and stuff like this. You know that. But I think one of the most important things is, okay, to protest against this stuff is one thing, but to just literally kill police officers is another. Because I'd have some friends who were police officers. As a matter of fact, one police officer right here in Atlanta, Georgia, saved my life. He saved me from getting beaten any worse than I did. Right here, it was Leb's Restaurant where we had gone. And his name was Lieutenant Ball at the time. And by the time I moved here, he had become a major. He was black, but then I had some white police officers after I got into a taxi cab business that were helped me. So I'm saying indiscriminately, just shooting at people is off the cuff for me. You know my indiscriminately, you know, you just go out and shoot you 3 or 4 cops. You don't know who you killed. You might have killed one of our friends. And the other thing is, I think that we need to protest when these things happen, but I think going to people's campaigns protesting, that ain't the thing to do. The thing to do is to get as many people registered to vote and get them to the polls, because that's what's going to get people elected that you want elected. Going to their campaign headquarters and doing a lot of stuff is not going to get that done. And people have to understand, you know, out of all the demonstrations and all the things I did, the most important thing was voter registration. But it took time for me to come to that point. Voter registration was the most important thing I did. Not going to jail, not having my name in the paper or anything like that. But it was also a lot of hard work in that. That's where the work is, you see. And that was where it was really, really dangerous, to the point where, you know, you could be out there walking, they just pick you up and kill you. And in Mississippi, it was very prevalent that they were killing people and bragging about it. James Eastland bragged about his involvement in a murder of a black person in Mississippi. He was head of the Judiciary Committee of the United States of America at the time. But black people weren't voting. There were, what they did, even Medgar Evers, what's his name, the guy that killed Medgar, Beckwith, he bragged about killing Medgar for a long time until he got arrested by the federal government. But he bragged about it. How? Why? Because there were no black people voting. And it's two things, so you can't have one without the other. If you got to vote, you got to also have something else to go with it. And it's important to vote for the president, but your local candidates are more important than that. They're the most important because they decide where the money goes. Look at what's happening in Alabama with Bentley. He won't accept Medicaid expansion. Okay? That's where your local elected officials decide where the money goes. Now, there are some other ethnic groups that they ain't worried about who's going to be the president because they got money. And when I say they got money collectively. They got things going where they ain't going to, you know, they probably even vote, you know, we're going to vote for some people. But they're not making it an issue. And I don't know, you wanted me to make a comment on the candidates that are running. I don't, one thing I think is happening, especially with Mrs. Clinton, is that she's a female. It's some male chauvinists involved in this thing with Mr. Trump. A lot of it, if you could see when she was up talking, he was walking around behind her and stuff. This is a form of masculinity of, you know, and although she's white, they still don't believe, they believe that they're taking the country back too. All this stuff is a part of this. They believe that they lost the country when President Obama got elected. Now, anybody believe that is really, you know, really off the cuff, because what happened is a lot of the things that he had to do, and it's back to your local candidates. See, he didn't have the Congress and the Senate on his side. And see, what people did is they went and voted for President Obama and didn't go back to the polls months later to vote for the Congress and the Senate. There was a low turnout on that. But that's where, you know, that's where it is. I think that that a lot of this is pressure. Is probably from the some of the male population. The fact that Mr. Trump, his demeanor to me, I have never met him, you know, but his demeanor, the way he acts and stuff like this, tells me it's a male chauvinist thing, and the statements that he make about Miss Clinton. Who else? Did I satisfy you? Okay.
I read this book when I was in university. It's called Coming of Age in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
It's by Miss Ann Moody. She was.
I know Ann. I knew Ann. Yeah.
So you did?
Yeah.
She was part of. So you know her, so I don't have to. But she shed a lot of light on things that people don't typically think of, because growing up in school, we only learn about like Martin Luther King and maybe Malcolm X. It was very sexist towards who they chose to teach us in school, teach us about in school, as well as everything was revolved around males. It was it was also revolved around nonviolence. There was a totally different part of the what was going on at the time. There was also people who believed that violence should be used because they believed in defending themselves. If there were, like, what would you say is often ignored in today's classrooms that should be said about the civil rights movement? Because when I read her book, I learned so much that I didn't learn in school. Like, for example, Martin Luther King, even though he was targeted a lot, he also had people backing him. There were constantly people surrounding him. She said that she was kind of like a little person, like in the movement, so she didn't have the same amount of people surrounding her towards funds. Her, the people who she was working with, because there was a lot of other students, they didn't get the same funds a lot of the times. You know, I remember one of the times she was saying how they're hungry and they're losing weight, and you know they're being threatened. People are coming by to kill them. Like, there was a lot of things that we didn't learn. What would you say you wish people knew about the civil rights movement that isn't really taught? Like, is there something you feel should be said, or it often gets ignored?
There's a lot of things that need to be learned about the civil rights movement, but there's also we have to understand that in terms of the women, you're talking about women, Ida B. Webb and some other women. I'm saying women weren't allowed to vote when we got the right to vote. It didn't mean women. That was with the emancipation. It didn't mean women. You know, women had to get their rights later. Some women pushed it, you know, and got women rights to vote. Another thing is, in terms of money, see, that's what I was talking when I talking about economically. We need to be able to finance our own movements and actions, stuff, because otherwise, as long as we begging, we're gonna continue to have a problem. See, there's nothing. If people want to help, that's fine. But I'm saying we're gonna have to stop this. And people, and if there are whites who support us in being totally independent in terms of a people, then they need to come together with us or donate money or whatever they need to do, support us, and not be afraid of us. Because what happened is what happened is in SNCC. When SNCC changed over to being more aggressive, I should say, and start talking about black power, there were some people who misinterpreted that, and there were some people who just wanted it to be misinterpreted that way. That we were going, even people in the movement then that were whites that would work with us, they were afraid, they got afraid because they thought we were going to kill them. But I'm saying later on they found out that was not that was not it, and you know, right now I work with some of those people. I still work with folk, white or black, but they have to understand that I know that we have a lot of things going on, and a lot of people need help and justice, and I'm for everybody having justice. But I am at the top of my list is black people. And the reason is we don't have nobody, I'm saying we don't have nobody. Everybody else is doing something about their problem too. They're doing the necessary things to help themselves. We're the only ones that's not doing everything that's necessary. I'm not saying we're not doing some things, but everything that's necessary. Unless we plan to work for us, I won't call the name of the company, but we're going to be one of those from now on. Yes, sir.
So why do you think that is, that like we're one of the few groups that are really doing things for ourselves versus others? Because I have a few ideas about it, but I want to know your opinion in terms of
Repeat that again.
I wanted to, this is a two-part question. I want to know why do you think it is that we're one of the few groups that aren't doing things like other ones are doing? I have some ideas, but I'd like to see your perspective based
Slavery.
on.
I'm saying but see, if you find out what happened in slavery, then you can understand why you are the way you are. We have to understand that even after slavery, because this is a semi-way of slavery, it's not complete freedom when people can control your destiny. Things we learned, everything that I'm learning, I didn't learn that in school. The only thing they taught me about was in school was Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver. And I don't put those people down because, see, a lot of folk didn't realize that George Washington Carver was an agricultural scientist. He didn't just grow peanuts and stuff. The man was an agricultural scientist. He was a scientist. And they use some of his products right now when they go out of space. The sweet potato, for the people to eat on their flights. And until we can distinguish the difference and understand what happened, okay, where do we go now? But everybody is doing something for themselves. They're doing it because they have money. They're they're doing it economically. If you, I said the Spanish, it's fine, but we need to do the same thing. I'm saying they got the same bank accounts. If 5 of them living in Harlem they got the same bank accounts. So when you call and ask about Josiah or whatever, only his name is gonna come up. See, it's gonna tell you how much money he got. Well, the money is combined with all his other friends. Man, they have $30,000-$40,000 in the bank. So well, they get, and then they've opened up some grocery stores. I mean, some professional grocery stores. A chain. I'm saying it's just beginning, but if you notice, when they go into a community, the next thing you know, the whole community belongs to them. And that don't just happen out of the clear blue sky. It happens because something is going on behind the scenes to get it done. And it would give us more self-esteem and more pride and everything when you don't have to go to these certain places and ask for a job all the time. See?
My second question was, I don't know if it's today or it's around this week, but it's going to be like the 50th anniversary of the Black Panthers. And I was wondering what were your thoughts on how they went about fighting for black rights and things
Well, I knew all of those people, especially in the 60s. Brother Rap Brown, who's in jail, he's still in jail now. But a lot of people don't realize that Robert Williams was the one who fused the thing for Black Power. And what they did is they tried to just eliminate him out of the civil rights movement, but people don't understand why he did what he did. At the time, it was not overt violence, it was self-defense. It was something about a young boy who, a white girl that knew him kissed him, and they had the boy in jail. And then after that, some white guy came into a black female's house and tried to rape her. And I would suggest that you go to the film of either the book Negroes with Guns. That's the title of it. And what happened is he pulled a woman's clothes and everything right there in the house. It went on out into the yard where she had a white neighbor who saw the white lady who was a neighbor who saw this going on. And he stopped. But I'm thinking why he stopped is he didn't want this white woman to see him doing this stuff, trying to rape this black female. And she had brothers. And what happened is her brothers told Robert, he was the head of the NAACP there in Monroe, North Carolina, said that we ought to kill this man. And Robert said no, so let's take this thing to court. But then the courts didn't do anything about it. They dismissed the charges, and the black women were crying and going to say, well, it's just open season on us. And that's when Robert said, no, we're going to protect our community. And I remember Jim Foreman, 61, and I remember I never got a chance to meet Mr. Robert Williams, but Foreman, who was the executive director of SNCC, kept telling me, well, Robert Williams got trenches dug up there. And I said, listen, why he keep telling me this stuff? I said, he's just exaggerating. But he was a hero because he defended the black female. That was where the bottom line was. And his wife was an integral part of his actions. And they had to leave North Carolina because they were going to kill him one night. They had planned to kill him, called and told him they were coming. That's just how overt this thing was. They would call you and tell you they're coming to get you, or either just come get you. Vernon Damer, if it hadn't been for Mr. Damer having weapons to protect his property and his family, he would have gotten killed sooner than he did. But Robert Williams and his wife and his 2 sons had to leave the country. They left Monroe, and when they got to New York, the paper had them out as the 10 most wanted men, had him out as 10 most wanted men by the FBI. Well, he was able to get to Cuba, and he formed some kind of coalition with Castro. And Castro also let him use a radio-free Dixie, is what they call it. Matter of fact, you could hear it sometime, but it was being blocked or something, And finally, he left Cuba because he and Castro had some kind of disagreement, and Robert didn't want to go along with it. He was nobody's man, and nothing like that. So Mao Zedong took him in China. And everywhere he and his wife went, they had parades for them in China. he was able to come back into the country at the time that they were trying to get some kind of better relations with China and Mao Zedong. But I believe they really let Robert back in because they thought they were going to be able to get something out of him about Mao. But now, whatever Mao was doing, Robert wasn't going to find out about it. I'm saying, it's just like you invite me over to your house. You know, you ain't going to tell me you got $1,000 in the mattress, you know, whatever. You just going to invite me in to stay and eat or whatever. But it wasn't that kind of situation. And his wife just passed a few months ago here up in North Carolina. And I think one of the sons is still living in Michigan. But he's at the top of my list. It used to be Jim Foreman. But he's at the top of my list for being my hero in the 60s. He's at the top of my list, and then Jim Foreman. Martin, Malcolm, nobody came to help this man. Matter of fact, the NAACP literally fired him. But the local community elected his wife as head of the NAACP in Monroe, North Carolina.
Thank you again for being here. I had a question going back to what you said about how it's, difficult, if not near impossible, to achieve economic independence when, we're still in slavery in a way, an extension of that. Mm-hmm. How do you think we can work towards economic independence with mass incarceration still happening, and which needs to end first?
Well, that's all a part of the effects of these things happening. Not being able to economically support our communities, and people take advantage of that. Somebody drops some drugs in your community, and this guy think he's got some territory, and he ain't got nothing, just the clothes he got on. That's all he think he has really. And then it spreads out to your children. Who they selling this stuff to? They're selling it to your children and your offspring. And that's a way of killing anything, is you got to kill the babies. The roaches, you got to kill the babies. And a way of killing the babies is them to have drugs and this, that, and that, access to this kind of stuff. And this is a contribution. See, when I say we got to get control our community. I'm saying if we see all this stuff going on, and I know one lady, I was telling her about something that happened in the community over there in Birmingham. She said, well, it ain't bothering me. I said, well, why you can't sit on the porch? Why you can't walk to the store? But it wasn't bothering her. Well, I got to get in before it get dark. I remember we used to walk at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. We didn't worry about nobody bothering us. But why are you doing these things? Why you got burglar alarms and burglar bars? We got our own selves in prison because we're afraid of maybe 3 or 4 people in the neighborhood that's taking over, saying this is their territory. That's the best I can do for that. I don't want to appear to be too radical.
I have a final question, and we're gonna end the meeting here. When we talked previously, Miss Annie Pearl, as I call her, how difficult is it to have the conversation with fellow blacks about how Christianity was introduced through slavery, and how challenging of a conversation is it with someone in your peer group to have this conversation? like we're having here?
It's almost impossible. One lady asked me what church I go to, and I told her I don't go to any church. The closest I get to church is the nation, and the only reason I get close to them is because they are able to do something about getting our people off the street, you know. But she got mad at me. I'm saying literally. Wouldn't even respond to me when I spoke to her. But I'm saying that's out of ignorance, though. Because she's still trying to be a slave. I'm a slave that's trying not to be a slave. Because I put this, I said, we are all still in this but I'm trying to get out of it. And I'm trying to bring some other folk along with me. I hold conversations with people, especially about something like religion and stuff like that, and politics. But politics are a little bit more open with, but the religion is really something. But what I'm saying, I can't understand why they're so happy about it, because around the church next door is where the dope deal is. And they ain't doing nothing about him, and they claim they got, I'm saying they are in charge. They are not in charge of anything except that building. That's all. But you can't walk the street. You can't walk out of it. You got to have a guard on the premises of the church. That speaks volumes. But you ain't, well, we got to pray. Praying ain't going to help this situation. You know. It's not going to help this situation. And one of the things they did, that's the reason I say I like the nation a little bit there. They had, matter of fact, I tried to join the nation before I got involved with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. But it was kind of dull, me being a child, you know, a younger person. I wanted something with some action and SNCC gave that to me, and the Civil Rights Movement gave that to me then. But if you remember, they had a group of people who were members of the Nation of Islam started a security company. They tried to say that Minister Farrakhan ain't have nothing to do with it. Those guys went into the business of being a security company. And they were doing something that they was working at this projects or something. But the people were saying, this is the only time we've been able to walk to the store. But now the thing about challenging, the other side challenging these people, the dope dealers and stuff, that those people are organized. You see. It wasn't just what they were doing, it's the fact that they were organized against the, you know. As a matter of fact, I went into a white community one time, well, not completely white, it was mixed, and I went in, I was going to move and buy me another house, and I always check a community out at night. Because that's the community. Whatever's happening at night is the community. During the day, forget that. Go at night and check out what's happening at night. So I went in the community. I was stopped by some of the white members of the community asking me, what was I looking for? What was I? Now, this speaks volumes. They ain't going to have no stuff in that community. They're not going to put up with it. They want to know who you are, where you're going. And I really had problems because it was dark and I couldn't find the house that I wanted to. In the dark, I couldn't find the house again. And they told me where the house was. I told them I said, I'm trying to buy a house, and they got the sign up. And they told me exactly where it was. But now, those are the things you have to do. And this is where a lot of our African American brothers and sisters are in jail. I'm saying it used to be a time that women would, but I'm saying the woman, that's another thing. The woman is not at home. So where the children? Who taking care of them? Nobody. They growing up to be the next my territory. Because the woman is out of the home. And that's something that's very important. We need to get the female, especially black female, out of the street. She's trying to get some money for some dope, telling you she got to have something to eat. And if she's not at home with the children, what happened? Nobody's there.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Miss
I
Annie
hope
Pearl,
it was
for coming.
satisfactory. You know?
Yeah, no, it's
I'm
good.
just-
Thank you so much.
Okay.